Right now on Tech Radio, should you go to Specsavers for your new tech? We think the answer is yes.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and around the world. You're welcome to episode 1085, looking at the biggest stories of the week this week, including Meta's new glasses. OpenAI tries to make ChatGPT more responsible, and what are people using it for anyway? Plus, with our guest Elaine Hanley from IBM, we'll be talking about cybersecurity in 2025.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, the man who knows everything there is to know about tech. It's Niall Kitson, our editor-in-chief. Big story this week, Niall?
Yeah, actually, big story in my household anyway. Have you seen Mean Girls?
No.
I had not seen this film until last Sunday. And I felt it was kind of a just get it out of my system kind of a film. And I didn't realise how meme-worthy it was. And one of them was, stop trying to make blank happen, right? So I was thinking of Meta Connect, and I was like, stop trying to make AR happen. It's not working for you. It's a load of nonsense. You think differently.
I don't think differently. We're talking about Meta Connect, of course, which was their big announcement this week. And there was a couple of things in there that they announced, but the big one is the new smart glasses. And the big improvement that they've done with the new smart glasses is they've put a screen in the right-hand side lens. And that screen will be able to show you, as you're walking around, messages that you're getting in, probably on WhatsApp. If your phone is calling, who's calling. If you are in a foreign country, it will show you the translations as people are talking to you. And the one that I really like, which I think is the most useful, is it will show you maps. So you can just have the glasses on and you can be walking down the street if you're in an unfamiliar place, and the map will show you which way to go.
Okay, so two factual things to clear up on that.
Okay.
Meta has partnerships with Oakley and with Ray-Ban. So which glasses are these?
The Ray-Bans.
Ray-Bans. Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay,
yeah.
You've got a nice design there to work with straight away.
Yeah.
But how are they actually going to work? Like, are you going to have to do Google Glass nodding your head kind of nonsense?
No, what they've come up with, also new this time around, is like they call it a neural band, because that sounds so 2026. Basically, it's a wristband, and what the wristband is doing is it's monitoring the tiny little motions of the muscles and your skin in your wrist. So, and it's able to translate that into controlling the screen. So the idea being, as we've seen before with some AR stuff, is you just use your hand, and your hand, depending on what shape it's making, or if you're doing a little twirling motion to forward on the screen or something like that, that is picked up by this neural band, and it controls the small little screen that you were seeing in the right lens of your glasses. And apparently quite effective.
That's pretty sweet. Okay. So here's the thing always with smart glasses. How clunky do they look? I mean, we've established that it's got a nice base design because it's Ray-Bans. And will people feel weird being around you because they think they're being filmed?
Seen this in action because a friend of mine has them.
Yeah.
And he does extreme sports. Well, not as extreme sports. He does whatever it is that he does, but he likes to film it. And instead of having a GoPro camera on his head, he uses these to record. And I have to say, some of the stuff he shared with me is fantastic. The quality is amazing. That's what he uses it for. Then he said he likes having it when he's out. He doesn't need to wear glasses, but he wears these glasses when he's out. And then if he wants to take a picture or whatever, he's able to do that. When we're around him, we're like kind of, please take off the glass.
Right.
We don't like him. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, no, you're grand. Like, it comes up with a little red light if the camera is recording, if the camera is on or whatever, like, But people are still like, and I was probably leading the pack going, no, don't like it. Take them off. So on clunky wise, yes. Do you know what? They strike me as being very 1960s NHS glasses. They're big, chunky, plastic black things.
Oh,
All right.
You just gave me an image of like, a giant walking frame or somebody in a ridiculous splint or something.
It reminds me of Michael Caine. They're kind of like Michael Caine glasses. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they're big, chunky things, but do you know what? I think it's down to the personality, because as I said, my mate wears them and he looks great in them, but he has that really big, outgoing personality and he can carry it off, like, whether
God, what
I
does
would
that
wear
say
them,
about our glasses?
well, that's what I'm wondering. I'm kind of just wondering, would I wear it? Because I do wear glasses, but I like the frameless glasses. That's what I like. I don't know if I would wear them, but at the same time, I am in the middle of a very conflicting row in my own head, which goes, go on, buy them, try them out. And I go, no, they won't look nice. It's a couple £100. Why would you waste that? And all that kind of stuff. So anyways, that aside. But yes, he uses them. The video quality recording is very good. I would absolutely love to try that out and to see, especially with the maps. Okay. Now, here's what I think is interesting about MetaConnect and your point about they're trying to make AR happen. Okay. They said that these glasses are designed so that you can remain connected and engaged in the moment. How can you be engaged with a person when your eye is looking at a screen, which is in your glasses, in between there and them, and it's giving you information?
Yeah. And so much information is conveyed just between your expression and how you're meeting somebody's gaze in the eyes. If you're, if half of you is checking something in a corner, an alert or a map or something like that, you're immediately disengaged on some level.
So I'm intrigued by these. I'd love to try them out, and I think they're a terrible idea all at the same time. But for the techie people, because we've got smartwatches and stuff like that, and of course with glasses, battery is hugely important. It will last 8 hours. So they said, if you want to call that all day, all working day.
All working day. Okay.
Whatever happens, it's got 8 hours battery in it. But comes with a case, and you put them into the case. There's 48 hours worth of charge in the case itself. And it only takes 20 minutes to get a 50% recharge on the batteries when you put them into the case. So that's okay.
Okay.
They're pricey. You can get those Ray-Ban glasses, the current version, which are confusingly called Gen 2. In Vision Express, I was looking at, and Specsavers, I'm sure, do them, around £400. And that's not including an actual prescription lens. That's just for kind of fake glasses. All right. But they're there.
Okay.
I'm wondering where all this is going to go next, because I'm putting on my little, kind of sci-fi hat and watching, Star Trek and all that kind of stuff, right? What's to stop in years to come that kind of functionality being given to you, but via a direct brain implant? Well,
sure, why not? If you're giving them out.
But I do think that information that they were giving, the translations, I thought was very, very good. I wonder if the translations will then also say, how would you like to respond? And then putting up phonetically how you can respond to what somebody says. Because there's no point in understanding somebody in Spanish or Italian or French if you're not able to then respond to them. That's a bit, unless the whole conversation.
That's the criticism of a lot of earbuds, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And voice assistants, we'll
At least
translate. Okay, but can you reply? No.
Yeah. On Google, I don't use it too much, but on my Google phone, there is a conversation translate that you can have. So you give the phone to the person in whatever Italian and they speak, and then you see it in English, and then you respond in English, and then it'll type it up in Italian. And it does that for the conversation.
Yeah.
So that's quite good. So yeah, MetaConnect, you think, why are you trying to push it? I'm kind of going, I'd love to try it.
Okay.
We'll wait and see. But both of us are kind of going, we'll wait for the brain transplants.
That's my position.
Listen, another big story today, and this is interesting, right? Because the DPC has announced a new commissioner who is a former policy lead for Facebook. Okay. Her name is Niamh Sweeney. She has a lot of prior experience, not only in Facebook, but she's also worked with RTE, the Department of Foreign Affairs. She's worked with Stripe and stuff like that. But because you're talking about the Data Protection Commission and Facebook in the same sentence, some people say that the optics on this are appalling. Why would that be?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at it this way. Do you want somebody regulating the last place they worked in? Like, there's two perspectives on it. And it comes down to that old phrase of knowing how the sausage is made. You know? Like, you've got somebody with deep industry experience who knows what corners are being cut, who knows what's being done that is contrary to either, best practice or European regulations. And they're going to work with a regulator. Okay? On the other hand, you are getting someone that is, I'm gonna play, extreme devil's advocate here and put my tinfoil hat on that, all that sort of thing. You've got someone who works for the deep state coming from an industry that has been compromised. What do you do with that? So who is the ideal appointee for the Data Protection Commission? Now, I mean, Niamh Sweeney is going to be the third. There's three of them working in tandem at the moment.
And this is because the Irish Data Protection Commission have been taken on so much, and they're responsible for a lot of stuff in the EU now. They started off with one commissioner who was replaced by two commissioners, and now Niamh will be the third. Yeah.
Reason being, Europe is not happy with Ireland's performance as a one-stop shop when it comes to regulating big tech and enforcing the GDPR. We are not good at it. We're too slow. We're too willing to listen to arguments from big tech, and it's frustrating everyone else. So there is a very good reason for there to be three commissioners. How Europe is going to react to this appointment, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for. I think it's very interesting, and we'll just have to adopt a wait and see. But it's an office that has not covered itself in glory since the arrival of GDPR.
I kind of wonder if it's a case of, poacher turned gatekeeper. And in my head, the way that works is I think it's good for the commission because she knows all the tricks of Facebook. So, if she's going to turn sides, it could be like one of those deep spy things from World War II, a double agent. Also in the news this week, a rumor from a very, very good source is saying that Apple are finally going to put a touch screen into the MacBook Pro whenever they announce
What do you think they'll call it?
Oh, God. Oh, to be the
They have
Pro
to come
Touch
up with some ridiculous branding.
No, I don't think. I think it'd be something simple like the Pro Touch. I think it's ironic that they're doing that. And I think it's kind of weird that they stayed away from it for so long, for the reason being that it was Apple who brought touchscreens to our lives. Jimmy, I don't know if you remember the very first iPhone when it came out.
What do you mean? We were chatting about it.
Of course I know. Anyway, trying to make us sound younger than we are. The iPhone 3G anyway, but that was the first real kind of, oh my God, like, you can touch this. And then they came out with the iPad after that, if I'm not mistaken. And the iPad is just like a big phone. So why they haven't built it into their laptops? They've been on PC laptops for years, and I have one myself. And it's not a huge thing for me. But it is very convenient when you want to scroll through web pages or when you want to zoom in on something on a web page or on an application or whatever happens to be. There's some applications where it does lend itself to touch. I don't think a laptop is really the most ideal place for a touch screen, but a touch screen definitely adds something to it.
Yeah, like I use a HP Envy, and it has a flipping screen on it. That's a flipping screen, Dusty.
There you go. Well, I have a Samsung with a flipping screen on it as well. So you can use it like a laptop.
Yeah.
And you can use it like a tablet.
Like a tablet. And it certainly does that, and it does it well. How often do I use it as such? I don't really. So maybe if you were a big data kind of guy and you're looking at the data for product development, you might think, do you know what? There's not a lot of demand for this. Yeah. Let's put it on the back burner. And maybe Apple are doing it now just as kind of a me too.
Maybe Apple are going to work on their own flipping laptop. Can you imagine it? The Apple flipping laptop. This is what it does. But Apple, they're so good with the iPads, okay? If you had a MacBook Pro and you flipped it so it started working like a tablet and it started working like an iPad, where you could do a lot of stuff with a pen input or a finger input or whatever happens to be, that could be really good. But I've just remembered
they do that anyway. It's called the iPad Pro.
Well, yes, but the iPad Pro doesn't have the keyboard built into it. So what I'm saying is you're taking the iPad Pro and you're kind of make it into a MacBook Pro. Come here. I can't wait for the launch though, okay? Because touchscreens are not new. PCs have had touchscreen for years and years and years. So it's not. I can't wait the way Apple are going to go. And
I mean,
you think this is a normal laptop, but wait till you see this. When you put your finger on the screen, things will move. It's like, oh my goodness. Well,
is this going to make people stand up and clap?
Of course it will. Of course it will. That would be even funnier, wouldn't it?
Bless them and keep them.
Another story this week, ChatGPT. Now this is ubiquitous in our lives and we all use it. And they want to also introduce age verification. We've seen this with the porn websites with adult content websites or websites with adult material. Let me put it on because that widens it up way past the photography angle I was thinking of. They want to bring in age verification. So, if it suspects that a user is under 18, they will have restricted access or whichever. Tell me why we need age verification on ChatGPT.
Oh, well, look, I mean, this harkens back to a story we started covering a couple of weeks ago. A story of Adam Rain, a 16-year-old boy, basically, who I think he had something like 650 interactions with ChatGPT a day. And of course, we know ChatGPT is not there to be a critical voice. It's to say everything is fantastic and good idea and all this sort of thing. And unfortunately, Adam had an awful lot of toxic ideas that were very bad for him. And it led to an appalling tragedy for which his family are now suing OpenAI.
Okay, and essentially he took his own life, just to be clear.
Yeah, and so this is the start of a more responsible OpenAI, I guess. Saying, okay, we're going to introduce age verification. Now, I mean, Dusty, age verification has existed on websites for a long, long, long time. An awful lot of it is just, are you over 18?
Yes.
Sure. Of course.
Sure. Whatever.
So how it is going to be implemented is something interesting. It'll probably be some measure of parental controls when you sign up to your plan or your family plan or whatever. Your login will be linked to certain restrictions, which makes sense. It shows a little bit of maturity on the part of OpenAI. We'll see how the family settles their legal action. Whether they'll consider this, a pretty good step in the right direction. All we can do is wait and see. But we have a different kind of ChatGPT story.
We do, and there's some very interesting research out this week about what people actually use ChatGPT for. Yeah.
This is a study done by OpenAI themselves, but they also worked with academics from various universities and also the US National Bureau of Economic Research. Okay, so this is kind of a multi-pronged approach, and they just wanted to find out what are people actually using it for, because we know people use it poorly. We know that the biggest waste of energy in ChatGPT, and when we say a biggest waste of energy, that's a lot of energy. Is people saying thanks at the end of a query. And I'm sure people have gotten stuck into this loop of gratitude where they just bye, okay, bye. Cheers.
You hang up first.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, what are people using ChatGPT for?
So we have found out that people are not necessarily using ChatGPT, or rather consumers are not necessarily using ChatGPT as a productivity tool. They're not using it to get better at writing. They're not using it to come up with plans to do things. They're using it to find out stuff. They're using it to find out how to do things. They want to learn how to do stuff. They want to use Google.
Well, do you know what? That's what it is. Because a typical Google query will be something like, how do I cook salmon? Okay. Yeah. Put that into Google, and traditionally Google would say, well, here's 57 million websites that'll tell you how to do it. Whereas when you do it with ChatGPT, it goes, okay, well, first you get the salmon and you do this, and then put it on for 5 minutes each side. It just tells you. Yeah. So why would people not love that? I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, this thing was sold to us as, the great productivity multiplier, and people do use it in work for letters and all that kind of labor saving stuff, and we can totally tell. I can totally tell when I get something that's been written by AI. I'm sure you can as well. They just have that sort of anodyne, technically proficient but clearly soulless quality to them. So people use ChatGPT the same way they used Google 5 years ago. It's a terrible waste of time and effort. Just use Google, people. Just use Google.
Also in the news this week, Mr. Trump, of course, off to see the royal family in the UK, making all the headlines, which I skip over very quickly. But related to Trump is TikTok. He has extended. TikTok should have closed in the States on the 19th of January, if I'm not mistaken, or the 20th of January, somewhere around. This is the fourth time that Trump has extended that deadline for TikTok to be banned in the US. But there is actual reason this time around, yeah?
Yeah, there is an actual reason. And I think it was the Biden administration passed the TikTok ban. Reason being was the involvement of the Chinese government in TikTok's parent company ByteDance, and there was concerns over surveilling US citizens. So TikTok was ostensibly banned, which turned into, well, look, we will keep TikTok, but the American operation has to stay in America, and there can't be any links to the Chinese government. And there were no takers in the way that ByteDance wanted to sell it. And the way that the US government wanted it regulated. So we had extension after extension because we know Mr. Trump likes TikTok. He campaigned using it. And finally, we have a buyer, or rather we have a conglomerate of buyers. We've got some VCs, we got Silver Lake, we got Andreessen Horowitz. They're going to take 80%. The US government, I think, is quite interesting. Maybe we'll circle back to that. But ByteDance themselves are keeping a 20% share. And another little wrinkle, the actual algorithm that makes TikTok go, that is staying, well, I don't want to say it's staying in China, but it's staying under Chinese control. So if something changes in TikTok, don't ring their US office. That's not where it happened.
That's the bit that really puzzles me. I wouldn't call that a wrinkle. I would call that an enormous elephant in the room. So that is like all of those, the US taking over TikTok is like they've bought a car, but they're not going to control the engine. Or even the steering wheel, I should say. That was probably a better analogy. So, why do they have control of it if they can't control the content? That's kind of weird, but you're right about the US government. They're also going to have a seat on the board. So they will have some say in how it is run. I would imagine that because they're all US investors, the US government's opinion will weigh very heavily on their shoulders. And we're having that happen at the moment. I'll give you a good example of it. But if the US government is able to exert his influence on the other people on the board because they're all American investors, well, then they essentially have got full control over the algorithm. Because if they say the algorithm has to do this and ByteDance don't agree, I can't see it being what it was what they wanted. They wanted control of TikTok in the States. Because they don't have control of the algorithm, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, bear in mind, Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz is a Trump supporter. fairly
well,
vociferous Trump supporter. So.
Other interesting stuff just going on. It's kind of related because TikTok is influencing how people think through the videos that it shows people. Okay. We're having editorial control of what the American population are seeing at the moment through late night television, where you've got the comedians on and they all do their monologue and stuff like that. And a lot of them are very anti-Trump and they're making jokes and they're pointing out what he's doing wrong and all that kind of stuff. Trump doesn't like it. And earlier in the year, we saw famously that Stephen Colbert, who does the Late Show, he is being pulled off air, I think next spring. Okay. And the reason they gave was, well, it's financial reasons. It's nothing to do with the fact that he is taking the piss out of Trump every night of the week. All right.
Well, we know what the background was.
We know what the background was. But the thing I was going to say is this week now, it's happened again. All right. Another talk show host, Jimmy Kimmel, did a joke about, now he was referencing Charlie Kirk and the murder, and it was Trump's reaction to it. Okay. Somebody asked him, he was a close friend of yours, how are you holding up with this news? And Trump's response was something along the lines of, I think I'm doing okay, but have a look over here at the construction trucks that are pulling up to the White House because we're building an amazing ballroom. Not very sensitive at all. So Jimmy Kimmel was pointing that out. Afterwards, a TV group, which owns 32 stations, said they were going to pull the Jimmy Kimmel Show from their network stations. And that has now led the owners, Disney, to kind of go, oh, right, well, if they're going to pull it, then we're going to just take Jimmy Kimmel off the air because we can't afford to lose 32 stations. And the big reason is because that group who threatened to pull out the show need government approval for a very large $6 billion acquisition of other television broadcasters, which will make them one of the biggest television groups in the country.
So effectively, the exact same thing that happened to Stephen Colbert.
Exactly. Fired for political influence. So there's three, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, and TikTok. So it's interesting what's going on.
Well, do you know what this means? It means we are going to get an absolutely fantastic podcast from next June.
From next June?
It'll be the Jimmy and Stephen show.
Oh, man, yeah. Listen, I have no worries about either of them. And I have to say, I mean, if you watch late night television, Stephen Colbert is pulling a blinder at the moment because he's very much of the attitude, they're going to fire me.
Fine.
I'll just do what I want. They can fire me earlier if that's what they want to do. So he's doing that. Anyway, that's interesting. Listen, that's about all the news that we have for this week. Just one little congratulations that we want to do for the end of the show. The National College of Ireland would like to congratulate JA Worldwide on their nomination for the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize. JA Europe being the coordinator of Code for Europe, which is a project where NCI participates as a partner. So bravo, well done. Niall, thank you as always for giving us the update on all the news stories this week and your expert opinion. Before we get into our guest this week, can I just mention that our show is brought to you by Dell Technologies Forum, which is back live at the RDS in Dublin next week, Tuesday, September 23rd. They've got special guests, including Irish rugby legend Peter O'Mahony, breakout sessions on everything from AI to the modern workplace, plus one-to-one discussions with Dell experts and a whole ton more as well. The Dell Technologies Forum, it's an unmissable event for business leaders, and you can register for free right now at dell.ie.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
According to a new report from IBM, AI is proving to be a force for good and evil. Why the two? The cost of security breaches is going down, but their sophistication is on the way up, and that means finding smarter solutions to match. To find out more about this and the general security landscape in 2025, Niall Kitson went to IBM and had a great chat with their partner security services, Elaine Hanley.
Elaine, so much of the conversations we have, so many of the conversations that we have on the show come down to cybersecurity and our approach to security. And every so often when I talk, in particular with software developers, they mention that security is very much the low man on the totem pole. Is that perception changing, given the number of very high profile breaches that we've had this year? Or is it still the perception that, look, security is a cost, not quite that we'll wing it, but we will trust our employees to be smart enough to recognize a threat when it arrives?
Well, thanks, Niall. I think that what we're seeing is that cyber security and cyber threats are impacting us in our everyday lives. So from just from a normal perspective, we're all seeing that impact and that threat in terms of disruption to our services, disruption to our own bank accounts potentially. And that certainly helps in terms of understanding the awareness of what the potential risk is. Then you kind of look at what that means in terms of spend by an organization in cybersecurity. And it is certainly been the case historically that it's hard to quantify the, if you like, return on investment for cybersecurity or the benefit of cybersecurity. I certainly think people need to say, how are we spending our money? And is that the right place we should spend that money? But I think certainly the impact of the threat landscape in our everyday lives helps to understand why it needs to be there, why that needs to be in everything we do, especially software development, because the impact of either bugs in source code, open source code that we're using in our builds, that can have huge ramifications for our own clients.
It is one of these conundrums. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove that money spent on cybersecurity is money well spent when you can't see it? Which is the ultimate benchmark. However, we are seeing on a global level an actual decline in sort of I don't want to say the value, but the impact of a cyber attack, which I kind of would argue speaks to the value of security and people's general awareness of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. So as you say, the cost of the average cost of a breach has come down for the first time in 5 years, which is really good news. Does it mean that the threats have gone away? Absolutely not. What it means is that we're intentional about the way in which we counter those threats, and we've got better and better. A lot of that is that we've got smarter tooling. We've got using AI within our security tooling. A lot of that is about really facing up to what we do need to deal with and dealing with that effectively. But it's good news to see that average cost coming down.
One of the interesting metrics, or rather two interesting metrics that I see come up in discussions of cybersecurity, is the average time or the mean time to identify and the mean time to contain a threat. Because, in recent years, we've heard so much of, the intruder was in the system for 6 months. And all this was happening. And you hear it and you read it in the news and you think, how did somebody be mucking around for 6 months before they decided to unleash an attack? But those times are coming down as well.
That's absolutely right. So you're right. Typically, what a threat actor does is they're able to infiltrate your IT systems, your networks, and they sit there pretty quietly. They're just observing. They're looking around and seeing what are the assets that they can see that they could use to their benefit. But essentially, because we're getting smarter, typically when you're looking at that indication of compromise, you're looking at some events and looking at patterns. And if you're looking at that from a security perspective, you often get an awful lot of false positives, which means you've got to work through all those, and that takes time. And that then leads to that mean time to detect that there is a threat actor in your systems. But again, the use of AI means that you can do much more of a correlation of a series of events to actually identify the probability that this is a real threat actor is much higher, and therefore we can we can positively show that there is something we need to do something about in this event. This is now an incident, and we need to actually act on it. And the other thing is we've got much smarter at actually containing them. So the automatic playbooks that we have to shut down that laptop. So somebody's got in and they've released malware in a particular laptop. We can shut that down and essentially isolate it from everything else, so you can contain the damage as well much more quickly.
When we're talking about getting smarter, of course, you have to lean into the use of AI. AI, a great facility, but it's also proving to be a really dangerous threat vector as well. So tell us a little bit about, I suppose we'll split it up into the good and the bad, but let's start with the bad, because we love a bit of catastrophizing here. So what are the kind of threats that we're seeing purely because of AI? Because one imagines the greatest hits like phishing are still around. How does AI put a spin on it?
Well, I think the first thing is that organizations are seeing great benefits in AI. And they're using that, and they're kind of jumping on that bandwagon, and rightly so, because it can get great benefits. But they're very often not doing that in a way that has governance controls associated with it. And so if you look at, there was about 16% of the breaches that we looked at in 2024-25 that were related specifically to AI. And of those breaches, nearly 100%, it was 97%, nearly 100% of those had absolutely no governance, no controls on the use of AI. So it's getting to what's, shadow IT. Everybody's familiar with shadow IT, which is people just using whatever they want without the implications of that or consequences of that on the organization being understood. Now we've got shadow AI, where people are, they're using AI on their phone, and the risk is that they're leaking data, very sensitive data, to this AI. And outside of the organization's remit. So essentially, we've spent years trying to implement what we called zero trust, which is all about making sure that we know who it is that's trying to access some IT resource, and that we trust them. We give them just enough of the ability to use those IT resources. We've been so careful there, and now what we see is organizations just willy-nilly letting people use AI, and that's a massive risk. So that's, if you like, the use of AI without governance. 63% of organizations have zero governance around the use of AI, and that's something we need to fix. So that's kind of the bad, but there's also and also the other bad is the use of AI by the threat actors. They're getting so much more smart. So it used to be that if you got a phishing email, you'd recognize it pretty quickly, because there'd be bad English, there'd be spelling mistakes, all sorts of like clues. This is not a real person. They don't really know me. But now the threat actors are getting much smarter by using AI to write those emails for them, by using social engineering tactics to be able to, Niall, I know you, you know me, trust me, and getting that access to people. So that's another way that the smarts of AI is being used by the wrong people. But we can see the positive side as well, which is, I've already talked about that, where people are using AI tooling, the smartness of AI in being able to detect when a threat actor is infiltrating much more quickly. So, if it becomes a sort of AI versus AI battle almost, and as they get smarter and smarter at using AI for nefarious reasons, we need to get smarter and smarter in putting AI to use to actually counteract that.
Yes, I think I saw a stat where a phishing email that in the past would have taken 16 hours to craft can now be done in something like 5 minutes.
Yes.
that AI really has slashed that effort, that almost to the point of why wouldn't you experiment with a phishing attack? I mean, on one level, it must be great for cybersecurity professionals that they can just keep crafting these things to make sure their internal systems are working just fine. That sort of automation has really sped up both attacks, but I suppose testing as well. So, in talking about governance, always it's a matter of things filtering up from the shop floor, if you will, from the people that are doing the penetration testing, who are doing, who are making sure people are using approved devices, aren't using unapproved facilities, whether it's, Copilot is only being trialed, or maybe there's a block on ChatGPT or something like that. And of course, it filters up to the C-suite. Where are you seeing those C-suites at the moment? Is it still this incredible hesitation that, ChatGPT is for my kids to do their homework, I'm not letting this near, people's jobs at all? Or is it, do you know what? This thing is saving us time, it's saving us money. Perhaps it'll save us on some jobs as well. Let's go.
Yeah, I think there is increasing adoption in general of AI. What I've observed myself is that very often, companies can be really siloed, and very often it's the parts of the organization that are looking at data and AI and analytics have actually nothing to do with the security organization. And that's partly the issue. It's partly that they don't talk to each other, and therefore security of AI is seen as something that holds them back. What we need to get to is where security is seen as an enabler. In other words, if we know we're safe, we can do whatever we want. And there's some very basic things that you can do from that perspective. Making sure that your AI engine, the use of AI is within the four walls of the organization, and is not exposed to the internet, and therefore you can't get this data leakage. Making sure that it's really simple ways in which, very much similar to ordinary data security, that you can apply to your use of AI to make sure that you can do whatever you want and it is safe. So it's really bringing the idea makers who think about ways in which AI can help the organization, grow faster, be better, take out manual tasks, being in a room with people who understand how to keep that secure. That's what we need to do.
A while ago, we had a guest on the podcast talking about this phenomenon of dark data. Effectively, organizations are sitting on masses and masses of information that has, no functional use whatsoever. Where do you see dark data sitting in the sort of the cybersecurity landscape? I mean, is this another threat surface just waiting to be exploited, or by nature, because it's dark, nobody's going to see it, nobody's going to notice it?
I've seen some clients where they walk into another part of their organization and they open a cupboard and they see yet another server they didn't know about with lots and lots of data. And very often, because they don't know what it is, they are afraid to delete it. So there's huge cost implications to that. So having duplicated data you don't know what it is. So that whole ability to actually discover what the data is and to classify it is got to help you in terms of your security posture as well. But it will also reduce the cost of having useless data that you are too afraid to get rid of because you don't know what it is. So it's about understanding all of your IT assets and understanding how they help you to, in your primary reason for being, which is your organization's, what they're trying to achieve, and making sure that doesn't leak to other sources and that it's used properly.
Yeah, because I've even come across examples of companies still using magnetic tape just because there's something on it. They're not entirely sure what it is, and they're too scared to delete it.
That's exactly what I've seen too. Absolutely.
So, in looking forward to how organizations integrate AI, an awful lot of issues that we're coming across don't necessarily relate to the technology itself, relate to the algorithms. It's these sort of ancillary problems that it brings with it, like governance, like ethics. Where do you see that sort of education process coming along? Is it a case of, people are just going, AI toy, brilliant, or is it AI? Okay, hang on. We've got to worry about security. We've also got to worry about how we're using it inside the organization to make sure it helps people instead of just being used to find a way to trim down the workforce.
Yeah, I think really what we need, and which isn't there yet, but it is improving, is a security awareness throughout an organization. Really, you can't silo the concerns about keeping an organization secure to the whatever it is, like 5, 10, 15, 20 people who look after security. Security really is the concern and the responsibility of everybody there, because it just takes one person to actually cause a breach. So I think that what I do see is a lot more of organizations where they're testing their resilience. But let's face it, a cyber breach is not something you can say will never happen. It is a possibility, and what you want to do is reduce the possibility by, investing in the right places for your security, but also improve your resilience if it does happen, that you're able to bounce faster, bounce back, be able to operate as you were. So those are things like testing. What is your incident response plan? Does everybody who needs to know about it? Have they tested it? Is it in your muscle memory? It's things like testing your backups. Will we be able to recover from a backup properly? So if it does happen, and let's hope it doesn't, but if it does happen, can you reduce the time that it takes you to get back up into business within 10 days, 15 days, rather than 40 days? And that's what we've seen. I mean, there is one very high-end retail organization in the UK who has had an enormous impact from a breach, and part of that was because their resilience, may not have been tested to the way it could have, and it affected so many of their systems that they found it very hard to. It has taken them literally, I think it's 18, 20 weeks to get back into business. So what can an organization do to make that into 2 weeks at maximum? 3 days maybe is even better to ask for. And that can only happen when everybody pulls together, when everybody in the organization knows what their role is and can play that role when the time comes.
One thing I've come across in recent years in talking to cybersecurity professionals is what happens after. The breach has been contained, the incident is over. What happens to your team after? Do they just go in the next day, or is there sort of an aftercare element that has to be introduced as well? Because I imagine, you've got a team that's been overworked for a couple of weeks. There has to be some sort of wellness impact. Is this something that managers are becoming more conscious of as well? That, as a team, they're not drones. They've got to be looked after so that if and when something happens again, they actually have, the mental resources, the energy to go and do as good or indeed a better job in future.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to actually recognize what they have done, and let's hope that they've done it really well, and to recognize the impact they've had in safeguarding the organization from what could have been. So I do think that needs to be acknowledged. There's always learnings though. There's always things that you could have done better. You could improve the next time. So I think taking the time to capture what we did, how we did it, could we have done it a different way, and building that. So like an incident response plan isn't a static thing. It's an ever evolving thing because your IT systems evolve all the time. So you can't sit on a shelf and never look at it. So I do agree with you that I think it takes a lot, almost physically and emotionally, out of people who are dealing with that. They need to have that support, they need to be acknowledged, and they need to see how they can use their experience to make it better for the next time.
And that was Niall Kitson chatting with Elaine Hanley, Partner Security Services at IBM.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. Of course, as always, there's other stories we just didn't get to squeeze into the podcast, but they are online. What are they now?
Sure, we have a conversation with SaveNet's Lorcan Cunningham. Birdwatch unveils a new AI assistant at the Ploughing Championships. And Fexco commits €50,000 to the STEM Passport for Inclusion programme.
You'll find all of those and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show online and, of course, with RTE Radio 1 Extra. In between here and there, please do share our podcast with a friend. If they're into tech and gadgets and all the kind of stuff we chat about every week, tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever they get their podcasts. Until next time, from myself, Dusty, and from Niall Kitson, have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.